Welcome back to Global Economic Brief, where we uncover the hidden forces shaping our financial world and the policies changing our future. Today we are investigating a massive policy shift that has shaken the foundations of the North American automotive industry to its core. On January 16th, 2026, the Canadian government made a sudden announcement that caught the entire Western world completely by surprise. They slashed the import tariff on Chinese electric vehicles from a prohibitive 100% down to a mere 6.1%. This drastic reduction has opened the floodgates for Chinese manufacturers, effectively ending the protective wall that once shielded domestic auto production. Critics are calling this move the 6% betrayal, arguing it sells out local workers for short-term access to cheaper consumer goods. But to understand why this happened, we must look beyond the cars and examine the intense economic warfare happening behind the scenes. The government was facing a brutal dilemma, caught between protecting their manufacturing sector and saving their agricultural industry from total collapse. For years, Canada has been a global leader in canola exports, a multi-billion-dollar industry that supports thousands of farming families. China, being the largest buyer, used this leverage effectively, threatening a 100% retaliatory tax on all Canadian canola imports. This retaliation would have cost Canadian farmers billions of dollars, devastating rural communities, and leading to a potential political crisis domestically. Faced with this economic gun to their head, Ottawa chose to sacrifice the future of their auto industry to save agriculture today. But the consequences of this trade-off will be felt far beyond the farming fields, striking at the heart of industrial Ontario. Let's look at the numbers. The price difference between Chinese electric vehicles and North American models is absolutely staggering for consumers. A BYD Seagull can enter the Canadian market for around $25,000, while the average local EV costs nearly double that. For struggling families facing high inflation and interest rates, the choice becomes simple: buy the affordable car, regardless of its origin. This price gap spells disaster for the big three automakers, who simply cannot compete with the subsidized efficiency of Chinese manufacturing. Market analysts predict a rapid erosion of market share for traditional brands, potentially leading to factory closures across the manufacturing belt. Chinese companies have mastered the supply chain, controlling everything from lithium mining to battery production, allowing for unbeatable low costs. Their battery technology is years ahead, and now, thanks to the 6% tariff, Canada is the perfect testing ground. However, the biggest concern isn't just about Canada. It is about the United States and the integrity of the North American market. Experts fear a phenomenon known as origin washing, where Chinese firms use Canada as a backdoor to enter the United States. Washington has maintained a strict 100% tariff wall, but the free trade agreement with Canada creates a potential loophole. If Chinese manufacturers build assembly plants on Canadian soil, they might technically qualify for duty-free export into the lucrative American market. BYD has already hired lobbyists to explore building factories in Canada, a move that would legally bypass American protectionist trade barriers. This possibility has enraged American politicians, who view Canada's tariff reduction as a betrayal of their shared continental security strategy. We could see a future where the U.S. imposes strict checks or new tariffs on Canadian vehicles to stop this flow. The labor unions in Canada are furious, warning that this policy invites a Trojan horse that will destroy their bargaining power. While consumers might enjoy cheaper cars now, The long-term economic damage of losing a manufacturing base could be irreversible and devastating. An economy cannot survive solely on resource extraction and real estate. It needs a robust manufacturing sector to provide stable middle-class jobs. Canada is already grappling with productivity issues, and relying on cheap imports undermines the incentive to innovate and build domestic capacity. The Port of Vancouver is expected to see a massive surge in vehicle imports, straining logistics and infrastructure in the region. There are also concerns regarding data security, as modern electric vehicles collect vast amounts of information about drivers and their surroundings. Intelligence agencies have warned that connected vehicles could theoretically be used for surveillance or remote interference by foreign state actors. Despite these warnings, the allure of an affordable electric vehicle is too strong for many Canadians who are feeling financially squeezed. The savings on fuel and maintenance, combined with the low purchase price, make these vehicles the only viable option for many. Dealerships selling American and Japanese cars are reporting a significant drop in foot traffic since the tariff reduction came into effect. In contrast, waiting lists for the new Chinese models are growing rapidly, with pre-orders exceeding all initial expectations for this quarter. Economists argue that this is a classic case of short-term consumer gain versus long-term industrial pain for the Canadian economy. This policy divergence creates a fracture in the North American alliance, potentially leading to a renegotiation of the USMCA trade agreement. If the US decides to penalize Canadian exports in response, the economic damage could far outweigh the benefits of cheap electric cars. The ripple effect will hit the parts suppliers first, the small businesses that make seats, glass, and electronics for traditional automakers. Ontario's industrial heartland risks becoming a rust belt if production volumes drop below the critical threshold needed to sustain operations. Meanwhile, in the prairies, farmers breathe a sigh of relief as ships loaded with canola continue to sail towards Chinese ports. The wealth transfer is undeniable. Canadian capital is flowing out to support the industrial growth of a strategic rival power. The government is now scrambling to offer subsidies to domestic manufacturers, trying to level the playing field they just tilted. But throwing taxpayer money at the problem may not be enough to bridge the massive cost gap that Chinese efficiency has created. Chinese automakers are also proving that their vehicles can handle the harsh Canadian winter, removing the last barrier to mass adoption. Public opinion is deeply divided, with some praising the access to green technology and others condemning the support of foreign industry. From an environmental standpoint, more EVs on the road is a victory for climate goals, regardless of where they are manufactured. Canada has aggressive carbon reduction targets, and affordable electric vehicles are the fastest way to replace polluting internal combustion engines. This creates a paradox where environmental policy clashes directly with industrial policy, forcing the government to choose its priority. Canada's move also isolates it from other G7 nations who are increasingly moving towards protectionism against Chinese state-subsidized exports. The European Union has recently increased its own tariffs, making Canada one of the few open Western markets left for China. This means Canada could become a dumping ground for excess Chinese production that can no longer be sold easily in Europe. The sheer volume of vehicles arriving suggests that Chinese brands are playing a long game to dominate market share at any cost. Domestic dealers are trying to slash prices to compete, but their profit margins are too thin to sustain a price war. Executives are warning that without protection, they will have to cut research and development budgets, further lagging behind in innovation. Meanwhile, Chinese firms are reinvesting their profits into autonomous driving and AI, aiming to leapfrog Western technology entirely within 5 years. The technology gap is widening, and by opening the market, Canada is acknowledging that it can no longer compete on merit alone. Walk down any street in Vancouver or Toronto in a year, and the visual landscape of traffic will be radically different. Ride-sharing drivers and rental companies are expected to be the first mass adopters, driven purely by the economics of operating costs. For the gig economy, this is a lifeline, allowing drivers to keep more of their earnings instead of paying off expensive loans. However, this causes a problem for banks. The resale value of existing gas cars and domestic EVs is plummeting rapidly. Current car owners are finding themselves with negative equity, owing more on their vehicles than they are worth in this new market. This depreciation shock could trigger a mini crisis in the auto finance sector, affecting lenders and consumers across the entire country. The government insists that this transition period will be managed carefully, but the speed of the market shift suggests otherwise. With an election looming, the ruling party is betting that cheaper cost of living will win more votes than industrial protectionism. It is a high-stakes gamble. Will voters reward them for lower prices or punish them for perceived weakness against foreign pressure? Beijing likely views this as a major strategic breach in the Western alliance, a successful use of economic coercion to dictate policy. Other nations are watching closely. If Canada's economy thrives, they might follow suit. If it falters, it serves as a warning. The prospect of Chinese factories on Canadian soil is the next battleground. Will they employ Canadian workers or bring their own? Local governments are desperate for investment and jobs, making them likely to offer tax breaks to attract these Chinese megafactories. But if they manufacture here with Canadian wages, can they still maintain the ultra-low prices that made them attractive initially? The answer lies in automation. These new factories will likely be highly robotic, offering fewer jobs than the old plants they replace. This demands a shift in education and training. Canada needs engineers and technicians, not just assembly line workers, to survive this transition. We might see deeper academic and technical collaboration between Canada and China, further integrating their economies despite political tensions. The United States will likely implement strict rules of origin auditing, making it difficult for even Canadian-assembled cars to cross south. A thickened border slows down all trade, hurting every industry from lumber to food, collateral damage of the auto war. Canadian exporters are terrified that they will become casualties in a trade war that they had no part in starting. With 75% of Canada's exports going to the US, risking that relationship for cheaper cars is a perilous strategy. Some analysts suggest Canada is trying to pivot away from total US dependence, diversifying its trade portfolio towards Asia. But pivoting a massive integrated economy like Canada's is like turning an aircraft carrier. It takes time and carries immense risk. For the average Canadian waking up today, the geopolitical storm feels distant, but the impact on their wallet is immediate. If a family saves $30,000 on a car, that is money that can go towards a down payment on a home. This injection of disposable income could stimulate other parts of the economy, creating jobs in retail, services, and construction. But we must not forget the towns that rely on the assembly plants. Their potential decline would create pockets of deep poverty. The government will likely need to launch massive retraining programs to help auto workers transition into new, sustainable industries. Perhaps the future of Canadian labor lies not in building the cars, but in generating the clean energy that powers them. The grid itself needs billions in upgrades. A surge in EVs requires a robust, modern electrical infrastructure to prevent blackouts. This presents a huge investment opportunity for Canadian companies to build the charging network that will connect the country. Connecting the vast distances of Canada with a reliable charging network is the next great national project, akin to the railroad. Politically, this decision is not yet set in stone. A change in government could see the tariffs reinstated overnight. The opposition has already pledged to reverse the policy, creating uncertainty for any Chinese company planning long-term investments. This political instability might actually delay the origin washing factories, as investors hate uncertainty more than high taxes. This could lead to a gold rush mentality, with consumers rushing to buy now before the political winds shift again. We shouldn't forget the Japanese and Korean automakers who build cars in Canada. They are caught in the crossfire of this war. They are lobbying quietly but forcefully, reminding Ottawa that they employ thousands of Canadians and expect fair treatment. The nightmare scenario is a total exodus, where traditional makers leave because of costs, and Chinese makers don't build because of politics. Canada would be left as a resource colony, exporting raw materials and importing finished high-tech goods, a step backward in development. Canada has the critical minerals needed for batteries. The goal was to process them here, not ship them to China. Ironically, the cheap Chinese EVs flooding the market might contain lithium mined in Quebec, processed in China, and sold back. This circular trade captures the least value for Canada while maximizing profit for the Chinese manufacturing complex. Ottawa must enforce strict requirements that link market access to domestic processing of minerals, breaking this unfavorable cycle. There are bright spots, like the new battery plants in Quebec, but they need a protected market to scale up initially. Without tariff protection, these infant industries might be strangled in the crib by established Chinese giants dumping cheap product. We saw this happen with solar panels a decade ago. Western manufacturing was wiped out by subsidized Chinese imports. History is repeating itself, but this time with the crown jewel of manufacturing, the automobile. The stakes are much higher. As citizens, every dollar we spend is a vote for the kind of economy we want to live in. Do we prioritize immediate affordability and climate goals? Or do we prioritize national security and industrial sovereignty? There are no easy answers here. The government chose the path of least resistance to save the farmers today. But in doing so, they may have set a timer on the demise of the North American auto industry as we know it. The only way forward is deeper integration and innovation. North America must build better cars, not just rely on tax walls. Innovation is the only true shield. We must out-innovate, out-design, and outperform the competition, not just tax them. Imagine a future where Canadian resources and American ingenuity create a vehicle that rivals anything coming out of Shenzhen. But time is running out. The 6% tariff has started the clock, and the competition is already at the gates. January 16th, 2026 will be remembered as the day the dam broke, changing the flow of global trade. To recap, canola farmers were saved, the auto industry was exposed, and relations with the United States were severely strained. We will continue to monitor the situation closely, tracking import numbers and the political fallout from Washington and Ottawa. Expect a strong reaction from the U.S. administration in the coming months, possibly involving new border taxes or trade challenges. Also, watch the sales figures. If Chinese brands capture 10% of the market in a year, the game is over. For those of you looking to buy a car, the market has never been more favorable, but the implications are complex. Canada is stepping into a brave new world of free trade with a superpower, an experiment with massive risks and rewards. Canadians have always been resilient adapters, and this new economic reality will test that resilience like never before. Our role is to cut through the noise and show you the economic machinery operating beneath the political headlines. If you found this analysis valuable, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth economic briefings. We want to hear from you. Is this a betrayal of workers or a victory for consumers? Let us know below. Check out our next video where we explore how global currency fluctuations are affecting your purchasing power right now. Thank you for spending your time with us today and trusting us to explain these complex global events. This has been a Global Economic Brief special report. Stay informed, stay critical, and we will see you in the next one.